謝主席。咁我哋開會啦嚇。
Members, we have formed a quorum, so let's get started. Item number 1, matters arising. No discussion is required. We have a table in the form of questions or subject raised and response from the administration. Some more replies will be coming in due course. So I'd like to welcome our guests from the Home Affairs Bureau and WKCDA. We have a few items. First, M+, planning and development of M+. Second, the park development in the WKCD. And then 3, management and utilization of the WKCD site prior to the commencement and construction work for the WKCD project. Once again, welcome to all our guests. Item 2. We're now on item 2, update on the planning and development of M+. It's, the administration has provided us with a paper. Can we have some introduction from the HAB? Yes, certainly. In April last year, WKCDA presented its progress of development and vision to this council, and now they will be talking about the progress in a few aspects, collections, professional development, and actually in terms of the latest acquisition and collections, the information has been uploaded to its website. And for nurturing local talent, they have come up with a new intern program from June to November. There will be a chance for local people to be involved in Venice Biennale, and also there will be a docent volunteer program to train volunteers. And in a moment, there will be a progress report. But here, I would like to invite or defer to Mr. Lynch and Dr. Navita to update members.
Chairman, good morning, members of the subcommittee. I've got with me today Dr. Lars Nitfer, the Director of M+, and I'd like him to take us through some of the key issues that we're talking about, and then we're very happy to respond to questions in regard to M+. We're at a very exciting point in the journey. The jury will meet to consider the submissions made on for the design of M+ in May. And we hope to have that decision resolved over the course of the coming months. It's also an important time in terms of 2 major events for M+, the one that Dr. Nitfer will talk about, the inflation exhibition, which will open later this week on the West Kowloon site, which is a big public fun entertainment exhibition. And importantly, from Hong Kong's perspective, the project that M+ and the Art Development Council are doing to represent Hong Kong at the Venice Biennale opening on the 28th of May. I think there's a range of other issues in the paper and specific issues that you would want to pick up from previous conversations, including the contribution that we've had from both Dr. Sig in terms of his collection, and increasingly an interest from the collectors of Hong Kong and other places to look at making philanthropic contributions to the collection for M+, which will be very important in being able to maintain the momentum on the project. So perhaps I could just hand over to Dr. Sig to say some oh, sorry. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, to Dr. Nitfer to say a few words of introduction.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, as stated in the paper, basically the M+ organization are working on with 4 things in parallel continuously. One is, of course, building a team, because without a team you can't do anything. And the M+ team is basically 21 members of staff, but with 7 more members in the pipeline in various stages of recruitment. So we will hit probably around 30 staff members in the beginning of the autumn, which is badly needed, since the 3 other tasks that we have focus on is, of course, building a collection, which is a major undertaking in terms of research and market research, scientific and cultural research, negotiations and so forth. So that's a big task. The other, which is of course coming closer and closer because we're in the middle of the architecture competition right now, is building a building. And we will of course act as a client, as a end user client in that entire design process, and it will be a very demanding task if we aim at getting this building absolutely right, building it from inside out, as we've always said, not just building a building and then seeing what we should have in it, but actually making it fit for its purpose. And then thirdly, of course, the entire big task of building audiences and building capacities and nurturing talents in Hong Kong. And as CEO Michael Lynch said, I mean, we do this through our exhibition programs. Now, next upcoming is the inflation exhibition, which I expect will reach large audiences in Hong Kong. It happens on the site, more or less on the site of the future M+ and the park. And it's a big project with which has a lot of fun in it also, and is really would work also for families and children to visit, hoping for good weather since it's outdoors. We also, as was mentioned, work in Venice with the Venice Biennial. But I think maybe even more importantly, we do a number of public introductions, the series of M+ Matters public programs, the public forums where we talk and meet the public and meet stakeholders and talk about everything we do and try to create as much transparency as ever possible. And thirdly, of course, the project to build talent, to nurture talents, to build future sort of staff for M+ and for similar institutions around Hong Kong through various types of training programs, internship programs, and so forth. So these are the strands we're working on, and it requires full force ahead. And I think I can say after 2.5 years in the post that the results we see are we're actually a little bit ahead of schedule according to the plans we established about 2 years ago, and things have been going really well. We've had very good results in all areas, but it's a lot of work. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Okay.
仲有冇其他人發言？
Anything else from this side? If not, then I can open the floor to members for comments and questions. We have a long agenda, members, so 4 minutes each round, questions and answers included. Mr. Tony Che. Thank you, Chairman. I have a question about paper number 4, or paragraph 4, rather. Recruitment, staffing. Some 10 come from Hong Kong. In terms of work nature, is there a big difference between local staff vis-à-vis non-local staff? Second question. The adjudication, the scoring system for the architectural competition. When we discussed the Sichu's Center project, I already expressed similar views. So for M+, would you be willing to conduct a review in the light of the last exercise on Sichu to see if there's anything that we can improve?
關於嗰個員工
Mrs. Lai. On starving.
The staff recruited from Hong Kong, would you please explain?
Dr. Lee, please.
Yes. I think from the outset we were aware of the fact that we wouldn't be able to find all types of expertise in Hong Kong, but that we would move towards, when the museum opens and for the future, that we would sort of nurture talent and build talent in the areas where we don't have sufficient experience in Hong Kong. At the present, roughly, and that's been the model since we set out, is that at least half the team should be from Hong Kong. And it's good if about a quarter could be from the region, from other parts of nearer Asia, I should say, and then the occasional individual, maybe 25% or so, coming from elsewhere, where we need specific types of expertise. There is no difference in the team between Hong Kong staff and staff from other parts of Asia. We have the head of education comes from Hong Kong. The senior curator of Chinese art comes from mainland China. The chief registrar or head of registrars, which is a very sort of very expert type of job, comes from Spain. But all in all, there is no sense of hierarchy or difference, other than we go just try to find the best expertise we can ever find anywhere in the world to build a great team. Over time, we hope that we will be able to transfer, say, from the registrar, transfer the knowledge from her over to more junior staff that we're hiring from Hong Kong, so we can build a pool of expertise within Hong Kong in this very particular field, in which there is no formal education anywhere in the world. These are jobs that you typically learn on the job in major institutions and then move out to other institutions.
咁關於嗰個
What about the other question?
Clearly, the competition and the assessment criteria were provided are the assessment criteria that were entered into, approved by the board last year before the competition went out. We're not in a position to change the criteria part way through the competition, but as you will have seen from some of the discussion following the board meeting last week, the chairman has made it very clear that looking at value for money, looking at the cost issues, is an overriding interest for the organisation at this point in terms of the individual projects, but also looking at the total budget of it. I think the one point I would make is that the rules of the Hong Kong IA, in line with international competitions, we have injected the idea of cost and value for money into the competition. Under their rules, they don't have rules for the cost issue. That the competition is meant to, with each of the competitors providing their QS to be able to provide their estimates. We have an independent QS. We have independent costings of the project as it's developed from inception when the project was funded in 2008. But we are very conscious of the issue, and will be putting significant emphasis on our discussions as we move into
Okay, Mr. Lynch, 我諗佢哋會真係。
All right, Mr. Lynch, I think they will follow up with further questions in that regard, because we don't have too much time. So can we be brief and succinct in our questions and answers, and answer to the point? Next to Ms. Sit Ho. Thank you, Chairman. For museums, well, for us, the collections should inherently be inadequate for Hong Kong, because we have not been snatching away collections from other jurisdictions. And also in Hong Kong, we don't have too many artists, leaving us with a lot of artworks or art pieces. But for museums, we don't necessarily need a lot of sort of ancient artworks. The artworks can be directly linked to our daily lives, and it can be directly linked and sort of interactive with local culture and local way of living. So that can form part of the exhibition. So I think in that case, the independence of the curators is very important. For a new museum like M+ in Hong Kong, I think talents are more important than collections. So I think it is very important for us to ensure that the curators are independent and have a freedom of expression and can express their way of thinking. In paragraph 12, in middle of last year, we purchased a group of Chinese contemporary art collections, and including some works by artist Ai Weiwei. When the chief executive or officer assumed office in the beginning, we asked Mr. Lynch if there was pressure from different sides. Could he ensure that the curators have all the independence in curating? So my question is, do you have a mechanism to ensure that the curators are independent in curating? So I hope that the Ai Weiwei's works will not arouse any controversy in M+. And when will these pieces of Ai Weiwei be presented in the M+ Museum?
Answer question number 1 about the independence of the curators, and I appreciate this question. I think it's a very important one. I don't think you can run a successful cultural institution without independence and freedom and clear freedom of expression. And I think that most of the key members of the curatorial team would not stay in post if they felt that there was any type of regulation in their ways of working. So I think it's self-regulating, actually. We have recruited a number of curators who easily could have jobs anywhere in the world, even also from of those who are from Hong Kong, because of their expertise and their standing professionally, and they would never risk their standing by being subject to any type of censorship or other regulation. And the first time I was in LegCo 2 years ago, I received the same answer, and I said that for me this is also the way forward. If there were any signs of regulations or decrease of freedom of expression, I mean, I would probably not stay in post. I mean, it's as simple as that if my arguments don't go through. In terms of showing the SIG collection, and of course, a not unimportant part of that collection are works by Ai Weiwei, for example, and many, many other important mainland artists. The plan is that we will make the first presentation during 2015 when the Arts Pavilion is up and running, and we plan to show the story of Chinese contemporary art, the 1980s, 1990s and the 2000s in 3 different sections there, as a first taste of this fantastic collection. Thank you.
I hope that there will not be political pressure in Hong Kong and that international talents can stay in Hong Kong. All right, I think he has heard your views. All right, I would like to follow up on Ms. Sitho's questions. How many curators have you brought in? Number 1, already. Now, if the full team has not been brought in and you are acquiring the art works, would that be too risky? My third question. In acquisition, well, for world-class museums, they would proactively acquire their collections. But it seems that we lack the courage to proactively acquire the collections, and we just depend on whoever gives us whatever items they have. So, are you undermining the independence of the curators? In that regard, I think we are very weak in that part. We are being led by others. Now, about the open competition on M+, it seems the selection criteria would not be able to be changed because that was drawn up last year and we couldn't change it midway. So, my question is, how much would you ask for in building M+? We are not an automatic teller machine, and our expenditure is unlimited. It's not the case like that. Mr. Lynch.
Last one first, Mr. Chairman. Clearly, what we're not asking for, and I think we've made it clear that once we've gone through the competition and gone through the costing process, we'll then be in a position to have that discussion with LegCo, and as I understand, that's scheduled for later in July. In regard to the question of the curators and the collection, we have to have a collection in the within M+, and all of those decisions are made by the Acquisition Committee of M+, which is comprised of advice from Lars and the curators within the team, but those decisions are made by members.
It's not made by the curators, it's made by the Acquisition Committee. Is that right?
It's given to the acquisition committee by the board of West Kowloon. So that's the way we have to make the decisions about acquiring work. And clearly, of the 867 pieces of work that have been acquired for the M+ collection outside those of the SIG collection, those decisions have been made by the acquisition committee, and 700 of those works are by artists from Hong Kong.
Could we have the name list of the advisors?
Yes, you can have the committee. The committee is chaired by Dr. Victor Lowe, who chairs the Museum Committee, and it comprises Claire Su, the head of the Asian Art Archive, David Pong, Nansen Shia, and...
Shall we?
OK， 我諗你會後備我哋啦，好唔好？咁但係我都好質疑點解你急得咁緊？
Well, can you provide us with the name list later? I wonder why you are so hasty in acquiring the collections, because the curators team have not been set up yet.
The works we are acquiring are related to the parts of the collection that we're building up on. As soon as we have the new curators in specific areas like moving image and contemporary culture, that's when we will be acquiring.
我想問下民政局啦，你哋有冇一個 procedure 話俾佢聽，有一個程序話？
Do you have any procedures of acquisition? Have they overstepped in the acquisition policy?
研究過同埋係通。
The WKDCA has endorsed an acquisition policy, including the procedures involved. And all the procedures, we have consulted the ICAC, and also the guidelines have been consulted with the Museum Committee under the WKCDA. So the acquisition has all been made with the set policies. Can you give us the acquisition policy later on? Yes. Thank you. Ms. Chen Yinhan next. I will ask all my questions, and then I will raise my hand the second time. All right, I'll ask my questions. I have doubts on the staff members. Why do you think that Hong Kong staff are not eligible for some of the posts? Why do you have to bring in so many international experts? What do you mean by international? Do you mean people who know English are considered international? A lot of Hong Kong people do know English. So my second question is, we don't have yet a design, and we're now proceeding with acquiring collections. So I'm worried about whether the building costs will be jacked up because you have such a large collection. If we are, do you have expert support in your acquisition? Yes, please answer us. Who is going to answer? Mr. Lynch?
First of all, the question of why we have outside experts. Because operating a large museum as the one we're setting up is it's an expertise task. And we don't have long traditions or major museums that over time has built this capacity. And therefore, in the early stages, we need to bring some types of expertise for which there are no formal training from other parts of the world. It's a minority of the team, and I think over time they will transfer their knowledge to the benefit of the Hong Kong team and the Hong Kong public, and that we will have this expertise in Hong Kong. But I think that we're given the task to create something that actually has world-class standard, and then we have to do it in the way that we find proper. It's not about English or not English, and actually, as a matter of fact, some of the overseas experts speak Chinese, so it's not a language matter, and I think everybody's aware of that also. When it comes to the expertise of choosing the collection, I think just a year ago there were doubts about our ability to build a large enough collection.
I
was not talking about the collections per se. It's just that the building has not been constructed, and now you are already collecting or acquiring collections because the competition is still going on.
Well, the whole idea with this project, and as it was outlined by the Museum Advisory Group in 2006-2008, was that we should build a museum from inside out, that we should not repeat the mistake that's often made, that first you build a building and then you start thinking about what should go in it. The right way to build a museum is actually to build a collection and let the building be shaped by that.
Sorry. 由於我冇時間，我要講咧，呢個係觀點嘅角度啫。我覺
Well, that's a matter of perspective. You've got your point, but I think I've got mine as well. We have to tell the government that there are many good galleries with a wide variety of experience. I think people in the cultural sector are complaining that why in the process, locals, well, let's say Asian Pacific, those from Asian Pacific region, well, it's not quite involved. So I'm quite concerned about the cost. What is the design cost, Mr. Lynch? Can you give us an estimate?
Of M+.
I think I just answered that question until
The expenses.
No, the figure in the budget, in the CC case, is the only figure we have at this stage. We will obviously be providing that information to you as soon as we have got the submissions from the 6 companies, and our independent QS has done that. Just going back to the issue of local galleries, clearly we have recruited from both public and private galleries in Hong Kong. But the issue you have not had a contemporary art museum other than in the private sector, and this is the first museum of that type. And so, from our point of view, we'll be looking at people from the best available expertise. Our curator from China, our curator from both Chinese.
You can answer in other questions. Ma Feng Guo.
Mr. Ma Feng Guo, thank you, Chairman. Well, I'm a member of the board, so I need to declare my interest. So I think I quite understand the situation with WKCD. First of all, collections or acquisition of collections. I want to talk about the costs. For the first time, the administration mentioned this in the budget, and we're going to have a debate tomorrow. $50 million will be given to LCSD museums to acquire collections. I find this curious. That there was never independent budget for this, but this year we have one. At the same time, WKCD is also acquiring collections for the practitioners, people in the sector. A certain big budget is of course good. So I think I have to support it from the perspective of the practitioners. And now the government has come up with this new acquisition policy, one that is going to be carried out by the LCSD. But at the same time, concurrently, there's another acquisition exercise conducted by the WKCD. Would there be competition between the two? As a result, we are going to pay higher cost? Actually, since the WKCD starts to acquire collections, we have seen changes locally and overseas. Many major galleries are also doing this, also acquiring collections at the same time. So what would be the implications for the market, and how would the WKCDA assess the situation? It seems that we're now in a sort of artificially inflated market. And I've sensed that some galleries are making preparations to make the prices more reasonable in their view, especially local artworks. Deputy Secretary? Let me say something about the $50 million to be given to LCSD for acquiring collections. I can provide some information for members' reference. The LCSD's acquisition policy has been set long ago. It's not that they have come up with a new acquisition policy because of the $50 million. Museums under the LCSD, especially the Arts Museum, has an acquisition policy which is focused on local artwork, promotion, exhibition of local artwork. That has been a long-established acquisition policy on the part of LCSD. In the past, the LCSD did not have a fixed budget on acquisition, so it's sort of unstable from year to year. Very often it's closer to the end of the financial year that they thought that they could spend some money, they could spare some money on acquisitions. So that was not very good in terms of overall planning. We hope in the future they will have a proper planning, given the sufficient time to plan for it. So that's why we have earmarked $50 million for LCSD. But that's not the money that the LCSD has to spend within a certain time frame. There's no time limit. The important thing is to identify the suitable collections to acquire. So that's the purpose of giving $50 million to them. And concerning local museums and emperors, well, they have been in close dialogue and communication. They understand each other's positions. LCSD's museums are basically concentrating on local art development and also local artists in its rich variety. That's the position of LCSD. But the Empress is more focused on contemporary scene. We have a Hong Kong theme, but that is also interested in extending the coverage to Asia and the region. I think the two parties complement each other, and they would communicate in the process of acquisition in order to prevent overlapping, because both are spending public funds, and there will be room for cooperation in the future. For example, if the exhibits owned by the other party can be used in one's own exhibition, they can come up with some arrangements to borrow the exhibits. And next, we have Dr. N. Jiang. I have two questions. The first one is simple. Paragraph 7 mentions the first internship program has been completed. I would like to know the number of participants in that program, and after completion of internship, how many of the interns will continue to lend support to the Yamate scheme? Second, acquisitions. Do you have a policies on, say, within 5 years, you would like to spend a certain amount out of the 1.6 billion on local artworks? How many on international or mainland artworks? Do you have a policy on where the money will go? And up to this moment, how much has been spent out of the 1.6 billion?
On the first question, at the time, which was 1 year ago, that training program involved 3 interns. At the time, we only had a staff of 7 also, so we couldn't take many more interns than 3. Of those, all 3 were first hired for another, after the internship program, they worked for another 3 months on a sort of a project basis within the M+. And at the present, 1 of the 3 has a job in M+ and as an assistant curator. As mentioned, the later internship programs involves larger numbers of people because we have a bigger organization now and can, with quality, handle more people. Secondly, on the policy for acquisitions after a 5-year period, first maybe it should be clarified that out of the 1.7 billion Hong Kong dollars for the collection and collection-related works or costs, only 1 billion is earmarked for the actual collection. It's impossible to predict what percentage should be for different parts of say, whether it should be Hong Kong art or Asian art or mainland Chinese art, partly because we can't say how things will develop in terms of donations. Of course, the portion of money that had to be spent on mainland Chinese contemporary art, for example, went down considerably thanks to the phenomenal donation of 1.3 billion, more the entire acquisition budget actually, to M+. So that means that we can allocate more money for other areas. But since we are receiving donations also from Hong Kong artists, to date 12 Hong Kong artists have been giving us works, also major Hong Kong artists, that also makes our burden in terms of where money is spent a little bit lighter. I should mention, in reference to an earlier question, that donations go through the same type of scrutiny and decision-making process as an acquisition. There is no difference in terms of that. So it's not just that anyone who wants to donate will be accepted. It's the same kind of process as with an acquisition through purchase. Thank you.
Well, such being the case, would you consider something like this? Since the building has not yet been constructed, are you going to seek donations more extensively? Let's say if you get sufficient donations for the coming 5 years, then you can save the money that you otherwise have to spend on acquisitions.
In general, we'll be looking at finding ways of supporting it through philanthropic donations, sponsorship, collections being donated, but clearly recognising the pressure on the cost of the project, recognising the increase in construction costs. We'll be engaging with the Hong Kong community and the broader artistic community in looking at the forms of support we've got. I've talked about that before with LegCo. We're looking some issues that we've looked at. We're now focusing on the philanthropic and the sponsorship opportunities to make sure that we maximise the amount of money that we can contribute both to the collection but also to deal with the cost issue.
Please give us a paper after the meeting. The next one. First round is Emily Lau, UC Wing, Alice Mac, Alan Leung, and Thank you, Chairman Emily Lau.
我辦事處咧就同我解釋啲嘢，咁啊，即係
I would like to thank the government officials for coming to my office to do some explanation on the WKCD project. I think it would be best if explanation can be given at the subcommittee. We welcome more dialogue. So I hope, Chairman, that the figures and statistics will be given on the costs for the project, including the CG Center, whether there is overspending, why is that the case? Is it because of inflation or newly added facilities or what? I hope that the WKCDA can come up with a paper as soon as possible, listing out all the costs. Yeah. And on M+, I hope that we can give them space and freedom to identify or come up with the best design. Because many people have said that Hong Kong is a cosmopolitan city, and then the buildings in Hong Kong are so ugly, and then we don't have landmark buildings. I do understand that if we are going to have landmark buildings, the costs may be relatively higher. So what LegCo should do is to strike a balance. Now, last time we talked about the CG Center, you didn't choose the highest bid. And I don't mean that you should choose the one with the lowest bid. That may not be the case. But what we should look for is a design which is cost effective. Now, you explained to us that according to international practices, they would not specify that the lowest bid be given. But we do want to take reference from international practices because we're inviting international participants to participate in the competition. So I hope that they would explain the criteria. And also, I want the WKCD management to tell me what cost control measures are in place and how, with these cost control measures, those with innovative ideas will still be willing to participate. I think this is very important. You aren't prepared to give us a figure at this moment. Last time, Mr. Ma Fong Kwok said here, in the last meeting, what he said was very worrying because he was in two capacities. And he was a member of the WKCDA, and he said that we are definitely going to run into a budget overrun, and it's better to relax the plot ratio. Now, nobody supported him in that suggestion, so we are very worried. So please tell us the process of selecting the design. Now, I can tell you that members would aspire for a good design, but if there is going to be an overrun in the budget, you have to give us explanations and justifications. All right, Chairman?
The process for the design choosing is that we are using an international jury, of which you have the details of that jury. It's comprised of art experts from Hong Kong and from other parts of the world, and comprises the chairman of the Museum Committee of the WKCD and the director of M+, Dr. Nitva. Clearly the criteria that we've used are laid out, but from our point of view, the process that we've looked at for both buildings and the process that we've outlined to this committee, we have independent quality surveyors looking at the budgets for the projects. The individual submissions are all budgeted, and we have technical committees at the moment going over those submissions. We have cost consultants looking at those committees, and that process will continue through to the jury sitting in May, and then continual work will go on as it goes through the development committee of the WKCD and to the board of the WKCD. So we are incredibly conscious of the issue of cost, but I have to boringly reassert the issue that the major issue in regard to cost for these buildings is the fact that construction costs in Hong Kong have risen over 100% over the last 4 years. That includes government projects and private projects, and so Clearly, that information has been very broadly discussed in the committee. We recognise the pressure that's going to put on the project, the scope of the whole of the project in terms of going forward, and we will be doing everything in our power with the specialist teams, the internal players, the project teams, and with the architects and the design teams that are chosen to make sure that we get a quality outcome for
我諗
Hong
大家都
Kong
明
and
白啦
value
，Mr.
for money.
Lynch, the time's up。
Chairman, they should give us the figures so that we understand how the thing is
7月咧就會俾
developing.
你㗎啦，咁啊，我哋希望7月10。
We hope that on the meeting on the 10th of July, you will give us all the statistics. Next one, Ms. Yu Si-wing. Mr. Yu Si-wing. Thank you, Chairman. About enhancing awareness of the public on the WKCD, the paper says about audience building, and that's a good thing. Now, before the M+ opens in the 2 years prior to the opening, how many programs in number are you going to organize? Who are you going to operate? What is the number of target audience, and what will be the costs involved? The budget estimates, please. Who's going to take those questions?
Which is also mentioned in the paper, made a number of programs already. We do basically 2 public exhibitions annually on average, plus a number of talks, symposiums, public forums, and so forth. And they have slightly different targets at different times. Sometimes the projects are very much about the sort of the local community, and they happen in a local community, as with the Yamate project. The inflation project is very much a sort of serious but still fun family project in a sense, where I think anyone from a 3-year-old to my grandmother could come and really enjoy it. And of course we have the public forums and the M+ matters, which have attracted thousands of people who come and participate in a debate. These are the general frameworks, annually 2 projects per year. From 2015, when we have the Arts Pavilion in place, that will be our base on West Kowloon. Generally, roughly, the budget for these programs are about, as a totality, in the figures of 15 million annually, which involves exhibitions and other types of projects. Thank you.
OK，仲有冇其他補充？冇，係。
Anything to supplement, Mr. Yu? For this $15 million, is it for the 2 years now or for the future? Or you seem to be saying that the target audience is mostly local people. What about the tourists? Will you be targeting them as well?
The target is local audience primarily, because that's our core audience. This is the audience we would like to build and build a relationship to over time. It so happens, for example, that both this year and last year, the big projects there are big projects that happened during the time of the Hong Kong Art Fair or Art Basel this year, which also means that we attract actually large numbers of the world's leading art experts to come and see our projects. But it's really much more difficult to build a tourist audience, because we pop up in different places, and it's very difficult to communicate to tourists where to go this time or that time. It's much easier to reach the local audience. And at the end of the day, it's for the people who live and work in Hong Kong. We primarily create M+. I'm sure the tourists will come because we'll create something that is world class, but we are here for the people of Hong Kong.
OK， 下一位，麥美娟。
Next one, Ms. Alice Mack. My first question. Why do you have to bring in people from overseas? The Deputy Secretary said that the LCSD is going to conduct exchanges with WKCDA. The people or the staff at LCSD are really of international level caliber. I think you are contradicting yourself. We do have the necessary talents, I think. Now, you said you're going to bring in talents from overseas, but I think Hong Kong has a great pool of contemporary arts experts. It really boils down whether you have the determination or you are willing to spend the time to identify and locate them. Now, on internship program. All right, you have a team head which is of international renown. That team head can, through his management, transfer the skills and knowledge to local people. But then if the team is made up of overseas experts in number, by half in number, over half of them are international experts, then it would take a longer time to transfer the skills and knowledge. Now, on internship program, how can you ensure that the interns will stay within the M+ establishment, and they then can transfer on their skills knowledge to others? Say, like the building of tunnels in Hong Kong, we are doing all sorts of knowledge transfer. Now, in Hong Kong, we do have many artists who have a wealth of knowledge and can work with those who are internationally renowned, the experts in that field. So why don't you explore using these people, the local artists? Now, you also mentioned about you are adopting an inside-out approach. You're going to identify the collections first and then come up with the design of the museum. So in that case, with that approach, how are you going to decide on the budget? Because you have many collections and you have to build a museum complex to accommodate all the collections. Will we be likely be running into a budget overrun? How are you going to control the costs of the building?
Part of the question, and then ask in terms of Dr. Nitford to comment. All of the jobs that we recruit people from are open to Hong Kong. Many of a number of our employees have come from LCSD institutions, including the head of education for M+. And LCSD and other people are able to apply. The only issue that we are applying is that we need specific expertise. So when we need an expert in Chinese contemporary art, we chose, after rigorous selection procedures, P. Lee from Beijing, because he was regarded internationally as one of the leading experts. Similarly, in regard to design, a very international area for Hong Kong, we chose Eric Chan, Chinese-American, who had been working in Beijing and New York, as the people. But our focus is to give opportunities to Hong Kong people unless there is no specific expertise that we need to be able to build either the building, the collection, or the institution. Now, I'll ask Dr. Nitford to comment because I realise the time pressure we're under.
Just briefly on the internship programs. I don't think there is any internship program in the world where you guarantee the people who come in, who are interns, that they will get a job. We will try to employ as many as possible, but the good thing is that we also provide people who have further training than they had before for other institutions in Hong Kong, for the LCSD museums, and so we broaden the pool of people with skills in Hong Kong. We're not only working with ourselves as a focus, even though we will be the big new employer, of course, on site. So I think that some of the interns will get a job with M+, others will end up working in other institutions, other places, and I think that's a value. We enrichen Hong Kong and the pool of expertise simply.
好啦，其他嘅嘢就一陣間先至或者係書面答覆，因為我哋今日嘅第一輪。
Maybe the remaining questions can be answered in writing. That it's already 10 o'clock and still we have 2 members for the first round. I'll wrap up this item after they have spoken. Deputy Chairman. Chairman, I'm concerned about the acquisition policy and whether the curators will have the necessary freedom to carry out the relevant policy and strategy. That is the room that they are allowed to operate. We know M Plus has 4 areas to cover in terms of visual art. According to the paper, there are 3 curators who are, well, actually they're recruiting the curators for 3 of the 4 areas. What about the 4th? Do we have a curator for the 4th area? And 3 out of 4 have yet to be recruited, and still you have so many acquisitions of so many collections resulting from acquisition or donations. How can you make sure that in terms of curation, policy execution and implementation and acquisitions, they would enjoy the necessary freedom and be given the room that they require to operate? And it's said that you are going to set up a trust to hold the collections. Has the trust been set up, or who are the trustees?
Deputy Chairman, in regard to the trust, we are still establishing the trust as part of the conditions of gift, and that legal work will be completed in the coming months. The trustees will be I think that the final mechanism is that they are appointed by the Chief Secretary to represent the interests of the collection, and we would provide that info. They haven't as yet been appointed until the legal deed is drawn up.
In terms of the curatorial team, maybe there is a need for a clarification. We do have 11 curators in post already, 11 curators, and we have expertise in most areas which is related to what we call visual art in different areas, Southeast Asian art, Chinese art. We have experts in Hong Kong art as well as in design. What we are missing mostly at the time is in an expert, a top expert in the field of moving image, and we need deeper expert in the case of ink art. But we definitely have a world-class team already in place for the areas where we have been making acquisitions. And then, of course, we will expand the scope when the further team members are on board. But thank you for your concern. Thank you.
主席，我想跟一跟呢，就係如果嗰個信
Let me follow up this. If the trust has not yet set up, what about the existing collections and donations? How are you going to arrange for these existing collections? And as for curation arrangements, would you not rule out the so-called responsibility system? As Mr. Lynch said, you are going to decide on the policy on this for different facilities. Can this be applied to the M+?
Well, the trust will be established prior to the establishment of M+. I'm not sure I get the number of the question in terms of...
I'm just asking what is happening to those artwork before the trust is established?
Okay, well, no, the majority of the SIG works are still held in a secure collection facility under our management now in Switzerland, and as soon as we have the secure facilities in Hong Kong, either temporarily or longer term within the context of the M+ Museum, those works will be removed back to Hong Kong. The works that we have bought outside the SIG collection are all in secure facilities in Hong Kong. But one of the issues we're grappling with is that it is actually cheaper for us to keep the works in a Swiss facility than it is to keep them in a secure facility in Hong Kong.
OK， 陳鑑林最後啊。
主席，我有
Mr. Chan Kam Lam, I have 2 observations and 1 question. First, the overspending or the budget exceedance. As Ms. Amelia Lau has said, we hope in terms of WKCD's financial position, we can be given more information. But I must also add that when we approved the $21.6 billion, the government was very firm in saying that it would be sufficient to fund the entire WKCD project. So we must tell the administration and the WKCDA that it is imperative to have proper and stringent budget control. And also the building costs must be put under control. We don't want to have an open-ended situation in terms of spending. It seems that there are quite a lot of things amiss here. I'm worried. We have to handle a situation whereby building costs have risen. You are going to ask for more from this council. I can tell you that we will be exercising very stringent control in the face of our future fund application. We will not lightly approve any additional funding. I hope this message gets across clearly. Second, acquisition and collections. We respect your freedom in acquiring your collections, but there's a principle involved. I hope you understand, you know that if it's indecent, if it's obscene, if artwork is political in nature, it's not artwork. There must be an overriding principle. Although freedom of expression is important, but the freedom cannot be baseless. It's something expressed through people, and people have different political inclinations. WKCDA, as an independent cultural organization with your own expertise, you should weigh the factors carefully. We do not have any intention to be involved in political interference. But I hope you have to remember that culture is culture, art is art. And now we have we have been given, or we have rather purchased some 47 works from Dr. Sig, and more than 1,000 have been donated by him. The question is, why is it that he had to sell 47 when he could give us more than 1,000 in donation? So he could donate artwork valued at more than 1.3 billion. Why did he insist on selling another 47 at over 100 million? And what's the selection process like? Maybe we can have a written answer if you cannot answer it in briefly.
It's a relevant question, I think, because it's not obvious. It is a practice that when a donation like this or a transaction on this scale happens internationally, when someone gives away his or her entire life's work and collection, as in this case, every museum in the world is out chasing this individual. And in this case it was Tate, it was the Metropolitan Museum, it was MoMA, it was Guggenheim. They were all trying to get this collection. I think we were also in the position that we were actually a budding museum. We did not really exist at the time when we started these discussions. And there was what Dr. Sig asked for was a sign of commitment from any of these museums to show that actually you're prepared to make an offer. You just offer an effort. You just don't want and want everything. And this is something that's been tried before. There is a number of precedents for this also. The Count Giuseppe Panza in relationship to the Guggenheim Museum, Mr. Anthony Duffy in relationship to Tate and the Scottish National Gallery. This is a model that's been used in similar cases. And I think that psychologically, from the donor's side, he or she wants to see a sign of commitment, of proper commitment. And that's what we gave him. And he gave us works worth 1.3 billion, which is the envy of the entire international art world. So it was not an easy decision to take, but I think at the end of the day, I think it was a glorious decision that the board made, actually.
主席係咪因為我哋即係佢送咗嘢俾我哋？
Is it because that he gave us some donations and we therefore had to purchase some others from him? Maybe you can tell us more about the process, starting from your initial discussion with Dr. Si.
The reverse order, that we purchased we purchased 47 works for a value of 179 million Hong Kong dollars, and he gave us 1,467 works at a value of 1.3 billion Hong Kong dollars. I think, as it is not well understood in Hong Kong, the idea of philanthropic gifts is that the person who is giving determines the terms on which they make that gift, and then we went through the process, including approval by the West Kowloon board of the terms and conditions for that gift, and then that's what was negotiated. I guess the issue that we would hope to be establishing in response to your question around philanthropic gifts and the sorts of things that we would get is that we would be hoping to encourage major philanthropists in Hong Kong to be supporting these institutions in whatever way they can, by either making donations, but we are dependent on them deciding to do that. I can't really ask Li Ka-shing to give all of his money to West Kowloon, but I would have no hesitation in asking him to give some of his money to West Kowloon.
If you don't digress, time is not really enough. As for the procedure involved, perhaps you can tell us more in due course. Ms. Priscilla Leung, we have overrun for 15 minutes already, so sorry. We have to move on. Next item. The park development in the WKCD. Over to the Deputy Secretary. Well, there be a one-of-a-kind green open space in the heart of the city, providing a venue for dance, music, theatre and exhibitions and outdoor programs. The WKCD is now screening the potential entries. And then there will be the need to draft bylaw. When the bylaws are ready, we will come back to consult this subcommittee. A paper has been submitted by the WKCD. May I now refer to Mr. Lynch for an introduction.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. The park is the third major piece of the project that is underway at the moment. We have commenced some initial works in terms of site investigation, the establishment of the tree nursery, but we are also continuing to do major events, including the M+ inflation event and a number of other events on the site. We will be making the decision to who will be the designers of the park over the course of the next coming weeks, and we are also, in response to the discussion that we had last year with LegCo, working on resolving the bylaws for the longer term for the park. That work's going on at the moment, and clearly, as the Deputy Secretary has said, we will bring those draft bylaws back to LegCo for further discussion. We will also discuss those draft bylaws with the District Council, and we will use the consultation panel under its new chairman to seek public views and to be able to make sure that the bylaws reflect the intentions that we have publicly put out, that the park is, that they are not excessively restrictive, they will not inhibit enjoyment of 23 hectares of this public space, and I expect Sid Ho will be very happy with them by the time that they are resolved.
咁啊，請大家舉手提問。我
Very happy to take questions.
我諗附例嗰度咧，遲啲咧佢交咗上嚟。
Well, we can scrutinize the bylaws when a draft is available. Perhaps we would now focus on the design, the architecture, the hardware this time at this meeting. Questions, members? Dr. Priscilla Lam, Chan Yun Han, Sit Ho. 4 minutes each, please. Dr. Priscilla Lam, Chairman. On the design of the lawn at the park, we raised earlier that there will be a lot more trees and plants, and then the open space can be connected to the neighboring urban areas. So I want to know whether that can be done, whether we can have a tree-lined boulevard there. We hope that it can be a tree-lined boulevard, or whether it is a tree-lined pathways, we don't mind. Now, will there be connections to the Austin Station? Now, next on the cycling tracks, will there be cycling tracks built in the park? Now, on the sculptures and installations, and actually that's related to the previous agenda item, will there be public participation in the selection of the sculptures and installations? When we visit overseas parks, cities, there are sculptures and installations put in the city, and there will be actually sculptures of famous artists in that city. So when choosing the sculptures and installations, can the public participate? Perhaps you can ask members of the public, say, in a survey, and then they can sort of put a tick against the items they prefer in the list of items you put forward. Now, for those they prefer most, and you can place them there for a longer time. So this can represent the views of the public and the special characteristics of the city. And also on attracting local tenants, you have been telling us that there are difficulties in attracting local talents. Have you thought about ways of overcoming these difficulties so that these projects can involve local talents in the arts field and also talents in the environmental protection areas as well? Thank you.
The lawn will be, there will be many thousands of trees in the park, but the decision that we're about to make about the park design will determine the configuration of the space. What we have laid down as the things we want within the park. In regard to the art in the park, that will be a responsibility of Dr. Nitfa's team to be both commissioning works to go into the park for long-term works. If you look at some of the Millennium Park in Chicago or the Olympic Park in London, where major pieces of commissioned artwork have been put in there, and that's a process that will continue as we develop the park itself. We are about to bring in the first of the schemes for bicycles that people will be able to use within the existing park facility, but we'll certainly be looking at bike access being available within the park under both the bylaws and under the practical side of how that's going to be achieved. We just have to recognise as part of the design that there are no cars on the site. Bikes will be probably the only form of transport other than your legs to get you around the site, except for the disabled. So that's an important step forward. And I think on your final point in regard to local talents, we are continually involved in looking for local talents across all of the areas of our activity, whether it be on the building side, on the arts side, or on the broader arts administration side. I think it was recognised in the Chief Executive's policy address a sum of some 150 million to help with the training of local arts administrators to both deal with the needs of West Kowloon, of LCSD and ADC. And so we are looking all the time. We have done surveys of local capacity and we'll continue to look at ways that can play to the local talents issue.
公眾參與嗰方面，我就係想
About public participation, can you elaborate on that? Public participation in selecting the arts?
I think the idea that the public can choose the artworks is something that I'm not prepared to do at this point, because I think Dr. Nitfer and his team would have a definite view on that. We'll clearly be communicating, as we have all the way through public engagement. The park was described as the 18th cultural venue. It was the part of the project that received most public comment through the 3 stages of public engagement. And clearly we would be, we hope that with the event that's on the site over the coming 6 weeks, on the actual site of M+, I'm sure we will get lots of positive, but I'm sure we'll also get some negative comment, and we'll be able to use that as an interesting opportunity to inform future decisions.
我而家即係嗱喺藝術嘅選擇，我哋絕
We trust the experts as far as the selection of sculptures and installations are concerned. But why did I raise the point about public participation? But you can at least take that as a reference. Because, say, some sculptures might not be accepted locally, and perhaps suddenly you put up the sculpture and people might have objection. Now, if you have the process, include in the process public participation, then that kind of scenario will be avoided. And you can, ensure that the sculptures that you place there are properly accepted by the community. Ms. Chen Yen-han? Chairman, when I look at the diagram, I have a rough idea. Mr. Lynch said that the decision will be made shortly. Is that correct? Secondly, 40 hectares of land in total for WKCDA. But when I look at the diagram, now I don't object a cycling track. Now, along the promenade, will the greening be done all the way along the promenade? Will the greening stop at the place where phase 1 is? So if greening can be done all the way along the promenade and the waterfront, then that will be good. I think it would be good if we can make good use of the harbour front. So to the east, there are buildings. Are you going to stop the greening for that part? Now about the tree nursery, it seems that it is taking up a lot of space. How big is that area? How are you going to go about doing it? Because it seems such a huge area, the tree nursery. Now, why does it take up such a large space? Now, along the harbour front, it would be good to fly kites. Now, we have a harbour front, we don't have cars there, and no airplanes above. So if we can include an activity of kite flying, then that would be good. All right, WKCD management, who is going to tell us questions? Well, perhaps you can answer the question on tree nursery. Well, the idea is to plant the trees as early as possible, and so that when the park is finally built, then the trees grown in that tree nursery can be sort of planted and moved to places all over the park. Now, please put that down in writing, because I'm afraid that your trees might have to be given over to the LCSD in the future. So because the tree nursery takes up such a large area, I hope that you can be very clear on how you're going to use the trees planted. Now, on the greening, yes, the greening will stretch right to the end of the eastern part. So the waterfront promenade extends all the way from the west to the east. So the greening won't stop at where the M+ phase 1 is. Yes, Chairman? Will a decision be made soon? Will we be able to have a sight of the design before it is decision is made?
Something that would be a very public piece of information in terms of the design. And just to go back to your question, part of the master plan that already exists for West Kowloon protects a 20-metre stretch of the waterfront around the whole 2.2 kilometres of the site, so that people will be able to get access to the water and be able to make sure they can do all of those things that they would want to do from the typhoon shelter end of the site all the way around to Canton Road.
OK， 主席，我又關心當你拍板嘅時候咧，如果有條
Chairman, I'm worried that when a decision is made, changes will be made to the layout plan. Please tell us, let us know if there are changes to the plan when a decision is made. Yes.
份文件
Next to Ms. Sitho. Half of the paper relates to the bylaws. So I'm going to raise a question on the bylaws. Last year, the bylaws of LCSD were changed to a set of house rules of the WKCDA. And actually, the WKCDA house rules are more stringent than the LCSD bylaws, i.e. kite flying is forbidden. Now, we understand that, say, model plane flying might jeopardize public safety. We heard this accident about people hit and getting seriously injured because of a model plane accident. So the paper says that the WKCDA will take reference of bylaws in overseas parks. I think I welcome that, but I'm worried about the implementation of the bylaws. Now, if we are going to compile a set of rather lenient bylaws, then if it is the police who are enforcing the bylaws, then we won't be able to see sort of bylaws enforced in a lenient manner. So the enforcement team has a sort of enforcement culture which should be established gradually. Say let me cite an example. The security team of the LegCo, they are very lenient, have been lenient to the media all along. But because we moved into this new LegCo complex, then they have changed in their attitude towards the media. And they need 1 year to make that change. So I think the enforcement culture, i.e. the enforcement of the bylaw, is really important. So who are you going to ask to enforce the bylaws? You said that these are the WKCDA agents will enforce the bylaws. I think you should take reference from what we're doing here in LegCo, and you build up your own culture in enforcing the bylaws, and you should be lenient to the media. And only when you find that it's difficult for you to enforce the laws would you call in the police to help you out. So WKCDA, I hope that you can find a good administrative way to enforce the bylaws in a lenient manner. So do you have an instant response to the point I raised? So
before here and in a lot of the public discussion that the park creates a really special venue for the people of Hong Kong. Clearly the culture of how we run the park is an important part of the development of both the design, our workforce, the existing facilities management that we have as our responsibility. And as we made out, the first sets of rules were to deal with the transition from LCSD management of part of the site to the fact that it's a very complicated, potentially dangerous site at various times in terms of the building projects that are going on. But we will be very much involved in the management and the setting up of those arrangements. We would only envisage the role of the police being involved on the site if there were extraordinary circumstances. We believe that we will physically set up the park in a way that's going to work. We will manage the park and the facilities in the park in a way that works, and that and we have already established through the hundreds of thousands of people over the course of the last year that have visited the park, including big events like the Poon Choi for 26,000, the Clock and Flap, the Free Space Festival, that we've been able to do it in a way which I think has caused very little discomfort or unhappiness for the participants, whether they were coming for free or whether they were buying tickets. And we would see that as very much the way forward, which I hope will make you very happy, bearing in mind your long-standing interest in this issue.
我想補充一句啊。
Let me add one more thing. It's not a question of whether someone is satisfied, because you have prematurely deleted the bylaws and you come up with your own house rule to manage the place, the facility. It's not right. It seems that it's the question of not having any law at the present. Last time members criticized you for this.
A long discussion of it. Last time we put in place.
Okay. Next.
Let's have the next member. Ms. Jiang. Thank you, Chairman. I have a suggestion. The park is not yet named so far. It's called Central or Green, a great park for the time being. Since this is WKCD, would you consider calling it Cultural Park? Maybe it's a more suitable name. We have a plan here, a simple plan here. Not much detail is in it. Ms. Chen Yunhan raised a question about the tree nursery. You have 2 locations for toilets, am I correct?
For toilets for individual events, but with 2 fixed locations.
Okay. So 你話即係意思係仲有好多。
So you mean there will be some smaller temporary toilet facilities?
You mean that this is too big toilet? There's still some small one or something?
We still have existing permanent facilities on the site.
Sorry. Please don't talk to each other. Let she finish her questions first. Please, Ms. Jiang. Have you finished? So the question is simple. I see that the 2 locations are far apart. Are we have some smaller toilet facilities in between?
We will have toilet facilities in all different parts of the park when the park is designed. At the moment, this is the map you're referring to is the map that guides us through both the building process and the temporary uses of the park. So we still have permanent toilets down on the waterfront side of the site, and we then put in, for individual events, we put in temporary toilets for each of those events on the site. You will see next week with the event there are toilet facilities in the vicinity of the actual event itself.
Okay.
咁
我另外我就想再跟住問一下咧，就係有關呢個附例。
Next, I want to talk about the power under the bylaws. We have someone from the HAB, I think, and now WKCDA would like to manage the promenade and the park. Is there another case like this? Well, Ocean Park, maybe one example where they have got their own bylaws and they manage their own facilities and premises. Well, but I can imagine that, this is different from Ocean Park. Ocean Park is a self-contained place. But here we have a waterfront promenade, and then you have people doing doing exercises in the morning. So you have to open it very early, or you have to open it around the clock. People may want to take a walk deep in the night. So would you be ready to allow them to do that? And it's said that no kite flying is allowed. I would like to know why, and I cannot find anything to that effect in the paper. Or have I missed something? Mr. Sly? The opening hours, according to the provisional use, have been set in accordance with the LCSD, the hours. I think it's from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. In the future, the WKCDA will have to consider users' views in setting the opening hours. Anything from the WKCD?
At the moment, no, it is only practical for us to go from 6 in the morning until 11 at night. The issue you've raised will be something we'll be discussing as we move to the design phase. And I have to say, I'm not entirely sure why we don't let kites fly. It's probably something that I need to go and do some more research on to be able to ascertain. If that's a burning issue for the people of Hong Kong, I may well be able to find a way to resolve that issue, at least on part of the site.
我諗呢個你翻去自己諗啊，因為係你自己制定話唔準放。
Well, it's your own rules that no kite flying is allowed. Deputy Chairman, Mr. Eleanor. I have a question about the types of trees and vegetations to be planted there. There was a previous concern expressed by a member that this is a reclamation site. Would it mean that some plants are not suitable to be planted there? You have a nursery and some trees have been tree nursery. I think some tree species have been tried out. So more details on vegetation and trees will be welcome. Second, in terms of management of the park by WKCDA, this is done in accordance with the ordinance. You have the power to come up with management bylaws. Let's have more information on the progress.
Thank you. On the trees, the whole point of the consortia of landscape designers and park designers that we're using will be very much addressing the fact that it is a reclaimed site, and that their designs will incorporate the capacity to be able to make sure that the trees grow and live and prosper. And if you look at the nursery site, it's both to grow trees to get them to an advanced stage, but it's also a research and development facility for a fact that I think that is a piece of water that's been reclaimed, and from that point of view it poses some real challenges both in terms of climate, environment and sustainability of what we put on the site, and that's clearly one of the priorities in the period leading up to the completion of the park design and the park construction. And then on your second point,
主席，你第一點我都跟就係即係 I mean the research and development. The research and development.
Well, the nursery is just being set up, and from that point of view, I think we've got period of time to be able to, to take advantage of that research and development facility to make sure what we do is going to work.
主席，我想問第二個問題。
The second question, please.
There was issue, we will be, we have indicated we will bring the completed draft of the bylaws back to discuss with the LegCo. I think it's clearly something that I may have misunderstood in the first discussions of the importance, and clearly we recognise that. We've had ongoing discussions with HAB around that issue, and we'll make sure that, as soon as we've got that completed, we're doing the research project on a number of major international parks in various parts of the world, and we look forward to resolving that issue alongside the time that the park is properly open to the public. In the interim, we've had to have a set of rules to guide both our team and potential users of the site.
If I could have an indication of what the timetable is like for that bylaw making process.
Well, I guess what we're looking at is trying to do it as fast as we can, but they won't come into play for probably, the first part of the park won't open for at least 18 months. So they wouldn't be so there's plenty of time for further discussion here and in the other appropriate places.
But I have to add, you once said that the bylaws will be ready in 2013-14, so I think you should have it ready within the current year. Emily Lau, not here. Other members? Perhaps I will go first. You are in the second round. To follow up a question raised by the Deputy Chairman, you are now conducting a research on trees. Well, it's a windy place. And you know the soil is a reclaimed land, a piece of reclaimed land. Maybe before you actually buy the trees, please consult LCSD, and they have a very rich experience on trees. And also please tell us the kind of tree, the species that you are going to purchase. We are concerned about ongoing maintenance costs, which can be very high. And now the design process started on the 28th of December 2012. We've expressed some concern about costs and so on. Although I don't know whether the cost attracts important scores in this scoring scheme. And we don't know whether you are going to add new things leading to higher costs and or maybe a funding request. When can you give us a preliminary cost estimate? We don't want to. We would rather like to avoid continuous funding requests resulting from such design issues.
It's a much more controlled part of the project than the 17 other buildings on the site. So from our point of view, as soon as we've resolved the design, we will be able to do that. We have a increasingly clear view of that, but you need the design. There are a range of issues that impact on the park. As you know, Mr. Chairman, there's a Western Harbour Tunnel, there's the Airport Express, there are a range of other complications that mean that we have to address some infrastructure issues. The issue of the basement under the other end of the building clearly create issues for us, and we're in discussions with the government on those issues at the moment, and that will come back as part of the overall costing.
樹木嗰度冇問題係咪？我見到李生都岌頭，即係你。
About trees, Mr. Lee, you noted you seem to be agreeing to the idea of discussing the the trees with the LCSD staff, right? Yes, we are very concerned about the trees, and we are negotiating or discussing with the experts from the LCSD. All right, second round. Dr. N. Chang. Thank you, Chairman. I have one question only. In paragraphs 8 and 9 of the paper, there are criteria for events to be organized at the event zones. Has much space been rented out? How frequently is the space rented out? And what is the icon?
OK， 下一個先至答你啦，再冇其他問題。
Yes, that's it for the next agenda item. No more question, then we'll end the discussion of this agenda item. The next one is on the management and utilization of WKCD site prior to commencement of the construction works. Yes, Dr. Encha, your question will be the first question. So, have you heard clearly what I asked?
Selection criteria that we use for allowing events on the site. And I guess in summary, we look at the key criteria outlined under paragraph 8 of the paper: nature and impact of the event, site availability and feasibility, and the credibility and track record of the organisers. And we've applied that to the over 50 events, I think, that we've conducted over the course of the last year. I think quite successfully, and we've been able to utilise a good mix of what are not-for-profit activities related to arts and cultural activity, as well as some commercial activities that help contribute to being able to do the free activities that we've been able to undertake on the site.
So is there any income?
Yes, I think we stated in that over the course of the last year we've taken about $4 million for projects that we've conducted on the site, and all of that money has then been put into the free activities that we've taken place, things like the Free Space Festival and the Chinese Orchestra Festival and the M+ inflation event, which will open this week. So we're using any income from the use of the park to contribute to being able to put a range of free activity on the site to make sure that we attract audiences, but we also build the awareness of what the park is ultimately going to be.
How do you decide who you would be renting out the venues for free and who you would be charging? How do you make that decision?
Somewhat of a Robin Hood approach. I use the example of the wedding event, which has had already some discussion in this chamber, where we charged the people putting the wedding. It was not on a public part of the actual site. We charged them a substantial amount of money to be able to then use that money to contribute to the free activities that take place. We look at the business proposal from any of the people. If it's a community organisation, if it's a charitable organisation, then or an arts and cultural organisation, or one of our events, we are very lenient in terms of how we do that. If it's a film event, we are very actively encouraging using those events. But if it is a commercial event, we think that the people should make an appropriate contribution so that we can pay for some of the other events that we want to do.
So who makes the decision?
My executive team, under my leadership, make the decisions on who gets in there, and exceeds a certain amount of money, that gets referred up to either the Development Committee or the
Yeah,
Board.
I suggest that you should make I suggest you should make clearly outlined so then all your staff can follow. Thank you.
Mr. Stop.
Dr. Kenneth Chen, thank you, Chairman. Just now you mentioned about a wedding ceremony. In mid-November, there were media reports that a rich person's wedding ceremony was held at the WKCD, so I'm very worried. So I wrote a letter to the chairman of the authority, Carrie Lam, the Chief Secretary for Administration. That letter was sent out on November the 23rd, and there was no reply to date. I want to clarify at this meeting. So how is application made? To whom the application should be addressed? What are the criteria, selection criteria? And what is the income expenditure of this wedding ceremony? Our concern is this: whether the public space and public resources are privatized, allowing rich persons to host private parties and other activities. Now, if this is the beginning, then WKCD management is adopting a Robin Hood approach, and you tell the public that as long as you have the money, then we can arrange a wedding ceremony for you, and we can negotiate the fees with you on a case-by-case basis. Mr. Gorman Chen actually said in a reply to the media, and he proudly said that he earned a large sums of money from that wedding ceremony. So can you tell us how much have you earned for that wedding ceremony?
Regard to the wedding, please do not misunderstand me in regard to that event. The Robin Hood comment was meant to be a reflection of the fact that that is the one event that we've done like that has achieved a substantial amount of money. We received in excess of 1 million Hong Kong dollars, but there was much more money spent on the event, in the creation of that event. We looked at that event alongside the criteria. You will see in Annex 2 of the paper the document that is publicly available for use on the site, what the application procedure is, what the eligibility is, and what the reasons that we outline. They then have to provide that to us. That is considered by my executive team on a regular basis. It is consistent with the permitted uses under the STT. And from our point of view, what we're looking at is a balanced mix of activities, the ability to generate income to cover the operating expenses, which were not given under the endowment, and I guess to create some sense of what the future of the site is going to be, that there will be a mix of cultural and commercial activities. In regard to the wedding event, they had brought in major entertainment players from Canada, and they needed to create a very specific public space. It did not obstruct the normal use of the site by the public. And if I go back to my previous experience of running venues in London and in Australia, at the Sydney Opera House we used to make a lot of money to contribute to the artistic program from running weddings and similar activities. And so I don't think we have any in principle objection as long as there is a benefit to the broader community, or that we can run events like the Free Space Festival, which we do.
主席啊，佢嗰度咧係講緊個人申請咧，一般咧係不獲考慮嘅，咁所以。
It says here that individual applications would generally not be considered. So how come this private wedding ceremony? So what is the nature?
It was done by a major. I think the Hong Kong economy gained some $10 million from this wedding. From our point of view, we only got 1 million. I wish I'd probably asked for more, but it was done by a major consortium of production companies in Hong Kong who went through the the relevant approval process and provided us with that information, and we made the decision to go ahead on that basis.
So the application was submitted by a consortium, but eventually it turned out to be a wedding for a Russian-Chinese couple, right? Correct?
Correct.
You think there's anything wrong with that idea?
No? The idea of a Russian marrying a Chinese couple, or...
No, I mean the fact that you're holding a wedding.
Well, I wasn't holding the wedding. It was in a non-public part of the space, and we rented it out. And my simple view is that the $1 million that we received from running the wedding was then invested into the Free Space Festival, where we brought 20,000 people there over the weekend in December, and we were able to use that $1 million to contribute to the artistic program for the Free Space Festival. Unless there are in principle objections, I don't see any problem with the idea of being able to do appropriate commercial activity there to ensure that we're able to do big events for the public. In the same way, we have charged a number of organisations that are commercial organisations that are making money different levels of charge to make sure that those events take place on the site, but that they're not at a disadvantage.
Time's up. You haven't been able to convince us. Because in your House rules, you said that you would not be granting approval for applications by individuals. Please go back and think about this again. And please, think about it. You will be whether you will be flexible. As long as they have got the money, you will give them the go-ahead. Next time, Ms. Sit-Ho. I think the WKCDA should learn from the lessons learned in the wedding ceremony and should make clear their application criteria. Now, Hong Kong Arts Centre in Wan Chai actually rents space for restaurants to generate recurrent expenses. But I think you have to be very clear in your guidelines, and you also have to consult the public in compiling these guidelines to avoid the impression that you are using public resources for private use. I hope that the WKCDA can understand our concern. Now, on paragraph 4, you said that you would be launching an automated bicycle rental system. I'm very happy about this. I have one question and one suggestion. My suggestion is that don't forget about the children. Don't just put adult bicycles. You should also provide some children's bicycles so that the entire family can ride on bicycles and enjoy a good time in the WKCD. Now, secondly, Hong Kong is a very safe city. But then people are stealing all sorts of things to sell. So bicycles can easily be as objects for the thieves. Now, in other cities, we see that you can just insert a coin, and then you can take out this bicycle, and then the bicycle will be parked in another location, and then everybody is abiding by the law or the regulations. But Hong Kong is a different place. How can we ensure that the bicycles will not be, people will not ride the bicycles out of the West Kowloon City District? Can you tell me how the system works?
And we will make sure that you comply with the laws and that you can't steal the bikes.
Okay. 即係唔收錢嘅，就一定要拍卡 ，OK？ 即係呢個另一方面，大家又要。
All right, so you would be using all these sorts of documents, but then you have to pay attention to the privacy issue. Now, once you have all the details for this bicycle rental system, please let us know. Yes, 好。
咁下一位劉慧卿委員。
Next one, Miss Emily Lau. Chairman, sorry, I wasn't here because a lot of people were discussing about the relief for Sichuan earthquake. Now, coming back to this topic about renting the venues at WKCD, Mr. Lynch said that there are private plots and public plots within WKCD. I am not sure that I understand the distinction between these private, so-called private or public plots. Can you elaborate on that? I think it's all right if you can find some money, earn some money to sponsor other activities. It's all right as long as you have the right guidelines and the right criteria is acceptable to all. Now, you mentioned about accessibility. Well, we are very concerned about accessibility. It doesn't work if you have all the facilities, but then the district is not accessible. So can you think about lifts and escalators, whether you have environment-friendly vehicles to transport people to the district? Can you have signages so that people can go there really fast? All in all, you should put in a sort of build an environment where people can easily go to the district.
Ms. Lau, that accessibility is one of our key concerns, but clearly we're not in a position through temporary use to do anything other than be able to transport people to the site, make sure they have a safe and pleasant experience. But as a part of the design of the park, the whole issue of accessibility is one of the key criteria for the park designers, and we will be continually looking at that issue. In regard to your first point, what we were saying is that it wasn't public issue, is that it wasn't on the waterfront space that the public is kept open for the public, either through the preparation or on the actual event itself. It was done for one night in regard to the wedding event, and then the public was able to access the normal parts of the site that they have access to the next day.
I don't understand, Chairman. So there is a public area and a private area in which certain individuals can get access with money. Please explain clearly.
No. When I'm talking about there was a public part. There are parts of the site that can be used for events, but they're of no interest to the public. The area around the Airport Express exhaust, or the area around the Western Tunnel exhaust, clearly are not sort of public spaces. But the space that we used for the event that Dr. Chan's already questioned us about was not inhibiting public use to the waterfront facilities.
Chairman, I don't think that's the point. The point is whether there are rules which are equal and fair. And I don't care whether it's near the waterfront or not. But if that area is open to any member of the public, then it should be made accessible. I don't understand your explanation. Chairman, this is not fair. That's why members have asked you to go back and to revise the rules, whether it's for using the area near the waterfront or in other locations. It should be fair and should be open. And now I don't think you have answered my question. I'm sorry, Mr. Lynch.
I can't let parts of the site that might be dangerous or might, in terms of children or public access, we have the site has been controlled in that sense for much longer than we've had any involvement with it. Now, there are fences, there are parts of the site that are fenced off. There were commercial arrangements on the site for many years in terms of access points that you could get to. All I'm saying is that in regard to that specific event, we did not restrict the public use of the site, and that was the point I made.
總裁啊，我諗咧，我俾多時間你。
I'll give you more time, Mr. Lynch. Members are not concerned about the exact location per se, but whether you have a fair arrangement. Because according to rules, please let me finish. You're not going to allow it for private or individual use. But if you say that you can pay me $1 million and you can make money, then you allow it to go ahead. If I want to use it, but I can only afford to $100,000, you won't allow me to use it. So the question is about the rules. What are the rules?
I mean, that's not true. I didn't say that. What I said was that we do not allow individual applications to avoid the idea of it becoming an individual. You know, they have to be submitted in the form in accord with Annex 2 of the paper, which I think is quite straightforward. If members don't feel it's straightforward enough, then we can provide further information, but it's quite extensive in terms of the applications. And what we have said, applications from individuals will generally not be considered. And from that point of view, that's the issue in terms of we have not said that it would not be used for private use. My earlier comments apply that if we can use it publicly or use it privately to contribute to being able to run events like the Bamboo Theatre Project, the Free Space Festivals and the other activities, then we see that as an appropriate mix of activities. And if we can't use it for private use, then we won't be able to do the free activities on the side.
So you
cannot put in an application as an individual, but you can do this through an organization, but it's also for private purpose. Well, it's not a bad thing to generate revenue so that they can offer something free. But I think the revenue generation part should be open to public. It's available for applications from all. And there are restrictions on the event or activities to be held there, so that they can generate revenues, 1 million, 4 million, whatever, so that they can arrange or organize free activities. The important thing is to have the clear rules. Let me supplement. One of the considerations would be to look at the track record of the applicant, the organizer, or for similar events. So from this perspective, they are not likely to, they are not going to accept application from individual persons. But perhaps we can have clearer rules. Perhaps the WKCDA can supplement. Deputy Chairman, I hope Mr. Lynch will understand this. Last time, in the last term, towards the end of the last term of this council, there were wide repercussions because suddenly you published a Gazette notice that the bylaws governing WKCD site will be replaced by something non-legally binding of your own. You must understand the concern. The concern is this. When you manage the site, it's public resource. And if you don't have any objective rules, bylaws, then people may think that if I know Mr. Lin personally, it's easier for me to get approval. In Annex 2 of your paper, but the criteria can be interpreted differently. It's for temporary use, and then you talk about the organizer. Those registered under the society's ordinance, under the company's ordinance, and so on and so forth. I don't think this should form an exhaustive list. So if it's not exhaustive, so who else can apply? Some members queried that in the last point, application for individuals will generally not be considered. But if I were to do this through a production company, for a personal show, personal event is still okay. That's our concern. And we hope the bylaws can be formulated as soon as practicable, and then the bylaws would set clear, objective criteria or rules, forming a base, a foundation, a basis for management. So perhaps the first question is, do you understand our concern, Mr. Lynch? Because I have tried to explain it again, why we are so concerned. And then, if you understand this, when are you going to respond to members and their concerns as soon as you can?
And the concerns of members about the use of public space, it's always one of the much debated issue within my management team about what should be there. But I guess overall, if you look at the range of activities that have taken place on the site over the time that we've been doing this, I think there is only one wedding, and from that point of view, I think it has taken up a disproportionate time of the concern. Clearly, we will be very much guided by the concerns. Clearly, the public events have been much more important, especially the free public events, in terms of what has taken place on the site. And from our point of view, we will be very judicious in making the decisions going forward.
主席，最後一句咧。
One last word, Chairman.
Have promulgated and are practicing a set of rules that have objectivity and have objective certainty is always tested by non-compliance rather than compliance.
Yes.
I hope you understand this.
I defer to your legal expertise on that issue.
主席，我唔係想對話，不過即係我
I don't want to have a dialogue, but I
take on board the concerns of this joint committee and to come up with a set of objectively certain rules ASAP. 多謝主席。
多謝。
Thank you, Chairman. Next, Mr. Tony Chair. Using the WKCD site for the temporary uses or for wider public participation is certainly a good thing. We hope more people can have access and make more extensive use of whatever is offered by WKCD. Especially, I want more local involvement and participation. Now we are designing a Shu Center and M+. Can there be some temporary exhibitions to inform the public that we have spent so much money in so arduous and selection process, the progress we have been making so far. It's of course evolving. Are you ready to inform the public of the ongoing projects?
But you will be aware, I think, that 100,000 people came to see the exhibition on the Shu in the Bamboo Theatre precinct during the period around Chinese New Year. And clearly we see it as very important as part of that public engagement that in making sure that people know what's coming. And we deliberately set the exhibition alongside the Bamboo Theatre project because next year the Bamboo Theatre project will move to the park part of the site where the wedding was, and then we will hopefully have created the sense of expectation because we will be building on the Canton Road site. So take that on board with the future facilities. We'll be making sure that people understand what's coming. It's a very important part of our new website and a range of the communication matters that we're looking at the moment. Thank you.
Chairman, I think this would be a very good proposal, and in particular, if MPLUS would include architecture as one of the visual arts, then probably, is a good way to promote. And I would most appreciate, the management had done so. Thank you, Chairman.
Architecture is actually one.
其實建築係啊，冇錯，就係M+ 其中一個藝術範疇嚟嘅。
第二輪呢就有得陳家樂，咁陳家樂。
The next round, Dr. Kenneth Chan. Any other questions from any other members? Mr. Abraham Sheck, please. I've listened long and hard on members' views. I don't think members are quite fair on Mr. Lynch. I think the question lies with the WKCDA. It seems that the authority hasn't been coming up with clear objectives, clear plans, and so on. Now, say for the example of the wedding ceremony, a lot of members asked whether individual applications will not be considered and so on. If you have clear guidelines, then they will help. No matter whether the application is coming from a rich man or a poor man. If the guidelines are clear, then we will be able to make a good decision. Mr. Alan Leung has made a very good point. You have to have clear guidelines. You have to put everything under the sun for everyone to see. Now, they want to have the bread and eat it, and that's impossible. So, you have to give us clear guidelines on what applications will be accepted. Now, at Disneyland, there was this party hosted for this TV star. And why can't KWCD do the same? Now, if you really want to allow people to host parties, well, please state the guidelines clearly. So, can Mr. Lynch go back and talk to the WKCDA about it? Or perhaps the chairman of the WKCDA can come down and explain the policies. So, Chairman, actually, should we be asking the members of the WKCDA to come down and give explanations?
Mr. Sheck, but I guess the reason that the chairman employs me to run WKCDA is to manage these activities, and clearly I think she's got plenty of other things that she needs to be doing at the moment alongside that. I think from our point of view, we've listened to the members, and we'll try and see if there is any points that aren't clear in terms of Annex 2, and if there's any more information that we can provide to make it easier for people to understand the criteria and what's happened. The only thing I would say in our defence, we have looked at each one of these proposals very carefully, and I think overall we are quite happy with the way that most of those events have taken place. And clearly we now have a much better understanding of the sorts of events. We have given priority to our own events and to arts and culture related events over all sorts of other activities. We have also, the majority of the activities have not been income producing to us. They've really been geared towards community or cultural use of the site.
HAB, any response from you? I want to talk about in paragraph 9 of the paper. It says that in assessing the applications, the priority is for arts and cultural activities. Commercial activities will be considered, and they will be charged on a market rate. So actually, the WKCDA is clear about this. Commercial events are allowed, but then they will be charged the market rate. Any other members, any other questions? Second round, Abraham Shek. Mr. Lynch said, that individual applications will not be accepted or considered, but then the wedding ceremony, its application was lodged by a big company. I don't think that should be allowed. What's the difference between an individual or a company? If you can make your guidelines very clear, and that an individual, an applicant, whether it is an individual or company, they can make applications based on a certain set of criteria. Now, we have earmarked $21.6 billion for the project, and we should sort of treat everyone equally as far as the use of public resources are concerned. So you shouldn't be saying that in applications from individuals are not considered. I think individual applications should also be considered.
Credible organisations, we are concerned about their ability to deliver the event, the ability to manage the safety and other issues, food safety, people safety. That's the reason that we judge whether the event organiser is a credible organisation with an appropriate track record and can make sure that they're in a position to do that. But I take your point.
我諗咁啦，係阿 Bonnie 嚇。
我想補充，主席。
Bonnie, I want to supplement. Please refer to paragraph 2F in the paper. Now, this is a piece of barren land now, but then in the future there will be buildings erected on the site. And in the future we have to break even in our budget. So we need to have an income, and then we will incur expenditure. So the income is going to be derived from commercial events. So in paragraph 2F, this is a barren piece of land now. So we want to have a foretaste of running a site with commercial elements. So individuals may be very rich, have a lot of money. So for individuals, you can still consider them. Maybe they can appoint a company to host the event. So I think the individuals should be treated the same as companies. Please go back and study the way forward. Any questions from members? Well, now is my turn. My opinion is similar to Mr. Shek's. Why are there so many questions or problems now? Now, HAB appointed the members of the WKCDA. They are community leaders, and they are doing it on a sort of part-time basis. Now, so that's where the problems stem from. They are community leaders and they are on a part-time basis. Should we adopt the model of, say, the MTRCL or the Urban Renewal Authority, whether there should be full-time board members? If they are doing it on a part-time basis, problems are bound to arise. Now, some board member has already reflected within this meeting that they don't know much about what's going on. So there are problems with the structure. You really can't rely on part-timers to manage such a big project. You should consider whether full-time experts should be appointed to the board. That's my personal opinion. Thank you. Anything to supplement from the administration team? If not, then I'll adjourn the meeting. Sorry, mic not coming through. Sorry, mic not coming through. Okay.
It's what my team's there to do. I think the idea that we are appointed to run the various parts of this project clearly, we work well with our board in terms of those responsibilities, and we've cleared these. Clearly we escalate those issues up to the board level. I don't know that it's actually going to be helped by full-time board members. I wonder how that actually would work in the good interests of the organisation.
I think full-time is definitely going to help. They would not work like rubber stamps. Well, Chairman, rubber stamps. No, it doesn't necessarily have to be full-timers because we have to pay them high salaries. But what is needed is to find people who are independent, who have the expertise, and who are daring in their remarks, and who are fair in their comments. So these people, if there are problems, they can speak on their behalf. And these people are capable and are trusted by the community. But if you're going to find people who can't help, then you are creating more problems for yourself. So all of us here want to do a good job on the WKCD. Now, yesterday, I met with two people, and they told me that the arts groups have a lot of criticisms on the WKCD because they think they have been left out of the design of the CG Center. Well, next time when the WKCD management comes to this meeting, they will tell us that they have talked to the stakeholders and they have incorporated their comments. Now, in July, Chairman, you said that they would be coming up with a budget and expenditure and so on. Please tell us in detail where there is overspending, what are the justifications, what are the newly added facilities, and so on. We all want this project to be a success. And in doing that, you should have the support from the entire community. All right, third round. Well, he must tackle all of the points I raised. Next one. All right, Ms. Sitho. Well, the meeting should last till 12 noon. And we still have time left for discussions. Now, on the WKCDA, we want board members to be committed, who are willing to expend the time on the work of the WKCDA and are willing to work with the WKCD executive team. We don't want the board members to be rubber stamp, and we don't want them to be rubber stamp for the government. But then we are in a dilemma. Those who know about cultural policies are few in number in Hong Kong. So here, I would like to ask the management to ask the international experts who have come in to familiarize themselves with Hong Kong's culture and art as soon as possible. Now, we spent a lot of time on the hosting of wedding ceremony. I think all the discussions were necessary. I hope that you can learn a lesson from this wedding ceremony incident and to ensure that there are a set of clear and transparent guidelines. I understand that your objective may be to earn income or to organize activities which may engage the public more. So all these criteria should be put into the guidelines on renting our space. Now, on this particular subject, I hope that you would initiate dialogue with the community. Now, on the CG Center and the work is progressing in full steam. But then, in the software, in the jury panel, there is Mr. Yun Xiu-fai in the jury panel. We trust him, and he is a well-respected figure. But then there are so many diverging views in that sector on the CG Center. So, should we be holding a public hearing on the design of the CG Center to invite people in the CG sector to voice or air their views to the WKCD management? On 10th of June, we will be holding a public hearing to listen to the views of the arts and cultural sector. And that's from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. Well, it's quite early, actually. Let's be user-friendly in terms of timing. So we will start the meeting at 9 a.m. For those who are interested in airing their views, they can come. But just specifically on CG Center, I don't want to hold a dedicated public hearing on that because we've already done that in the past. Now, if we want to listen to views on CG Center, we can make use of the meeting on the 10th of June.
即係話俾佢哋聽，即係6月嗰個公聽會咧，係歡迎佢哋嚟就各項設施去講自己個睇法咯。
OK， 咁下一位石禮謙。
主席 ，Mr. Lynch, I don't want you to leave with your team leave here that we are against you. We are not against. We actually appreciate the professionalism of your team members in trying to do a very difficult job in a very political sensitive area of West Kowloon. But what we're trying to do, the chairman has explained, and you possibly might not understand, that we are here to help. We want to make sure that the governing body of West Kowloon Authority is doing their job. I'm sure that they are doing it, but the job is not to be done by the executive. The executive, I presume, are there to execute the policies. And it's the policies that we have actually questioned on the issues of openness, the issues of bylaws, the issues of equality and fairness, the issues of accessibility to each and everyone. Although there have been criticism of wealthy people holding weddings, I hope there will be even more weddings in West Kowloon, that everybody can apply on the equal footing, basis on your rules and regulations, that you are there to execute a job and doing it very well, but you're not here to take the brunt for the failures of the authority, not giving us enough information or their openness of how they're going to manage this particular important area. That is the crux of today's meeting, and we are not in any way criticizing your team. I'm sure you're doing a very good job and a very difficult job. 多謝主席。
Okay. 我諗即係。
Well, the HAB should note the comments from Mr. Shag. The CEO cannot take the place of the authority. I'm not saying he's doing this. I'm just saying that he's not supposed to do this extra duty. You have the authority. The authority must provide proper oversight. If you just ask celebrities doing this part-time, and then there's a problem. It's not fair to criticize the executive team. The HAB should look again at the composition of the authority. All the major decisions are made by the authority in relation to the WKCD project, but the execution is carried out by the CEO and his team. Let me also add one thing. The WKCDA is by no means a rubber stamp. So we have to help someone accountable. If there's a problem, we cannot just blame Mr. Lynch. So you must consider whether there is a responsibility on the part of the WKCDA. Members have expressed a lot of comments. All we want to do is to see a job done well. All right? On the 10th of June, we are going to meet at 9 a.m., not 8:30 in the paper. We are going to deal with two things: cultural software, and also cooperation and liaison with the artistic community. Thank you all for coming today.